Living life with your head in the clouds and your feet on the ground is no easy task. Most INFJs can relate to the struggle of spending more time in the dream world than they do actually living these ideas in reality. But does this mean that all INFJs are considered maladaptive daydreamers? And can all INFJs relate to these daydreaming traits? Welcome back, psychos. In today's video, we'll be discussing just that. The 8 obvious signs that you're an INFJ maladaptive daydreamer. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, as well as to click the notification bell so that you never miss a video. Number 1. People know you to zone out. Okay, while this trait may be relatable to all INFJs, hence the notorious INFJ stare, it also happens to be one key sign of the maladaptive daydreamer. Maybe you're the INFJ that, after a long meeting or lecture, you need a recap because, although you were physically there, your mind was going 100 miles an hour in dreamland. If you've jokingly been called a space cadet or been told that you seem like you're in your own world more than just once or twice, there's a good chance you would be considered an extreme daydreamer. If people have been around you for long enough, they will begin to pick up on these traits, and sooner or later, you're known to be the one with their head in the clouds. So, you can expect some lighthearted teasing from people closest to you. Luckily, the ones that stick around end up realizing that this zoning out habit isn't anything to fret about. In fact, when people know this about you, there's less chance of them taking your distraction with the daydream world to heart. Number 2. You can occupy yourself during boring events. 4-hour car ride with no entertainment? 30-minute wait in line with a dead phone? No problem. Waiting isn't a problem for the INFJ maladaptive daydreamer. In fact, they view it as the perfect opportunity to spend some time in their favorite place, aka dreamland. Often enough, long periods of time are not only bearable, but are actually thoroughly enjoyed for this dreaming type. Instead of scrolling through social media or listening to their favorite podcast during a commute, the daydreaming INFJ would much rather take the window seat to watch the scenery and sail away to their cozy imagination. As you can imagine, this definitely comes in handy and may even be what makes INFJs such patient people. Number 3. You preoccupy yourself during important events. Okay, so most INFJs can occupy themselves during boring situations, which is a huge plus. But what if those boring situations are important? Think meetings, lectures, conversations with a spouse, your kid's soccer game, etc. Unfortunately, this is where this so-called daydreaming life hack may work against them. Sometimes it's not so easy for the INFJ maladaptive dreamer to come down from this introverted intuitive imagination, no matter the situation or importance of it. Most INFJs are known for their incredible listening skills, but this focus on their inner world can certainly make this stereotype less relatable. Sure, they can snap back to reality for a brief moment, but if the event isn't catching your attention, back to dreamland you'll drift. It's not all that bad if you have someone to fill you in without assuming arrogance, but for things like important conversations with a spouse, you can imagine how frustrating it could be to the other person. Number 4. Important tasks aren't enough to bring you back either. Boring events, important or not, can rightfully be difficult for most people to stay attuned to from time to time. But for the INFJ, who is also considered a maladaptive daydreamer, it doesn't stop at boring events. In fact, important tasks that require physical and mental input aren't enough to pull them away from their dream world for prolonged periods of time. A good example of this is completing a school exam only to daydream through half of the questions, and only partially answer the ones that do get answered. In other words, daydreaming is extremely distracting, and for so-called daydreamers, it is their preferred state. This habit can also trickle down to simpler, important tasks like remembering to bring your lunch to work, filling up on gas, and remembering to text your mom happy birthday. The constant distraction can make it very easy for the INFJ daydreamer to forget the simple things because they don't put a sense of high importance to these tasks, often letting them go unnoticed. Number 5. You're a drifty reader. For those of you INFJs who are avid readers, you can relate to this one. Reading, reading, reading. And then thoughts begin to pop up like, what's for dinner? I wonder why that coworker went home early today. What came first, the chicken or the egg? And before you know it, you've read a whole page without taking in one word. Well, this is the reality for maladaptive daydreamers. For as soon as they begin something that takes them inwards, such as reading, meditation, or thinking, their mind will drift. We all struggle with a drifted mind from time to time, but for the intuitive INFJ who has maladaptive dreaming tendencies, it's considerably hard to escape. And when they do, their mind slowly begins to drift back to their daydreaming. The wandering mind of this type makes it not only difficult to concentrate, but it actually makes the processing of information considerably more difficult as well. So, even when they do read and retain the information through their extroverted sensing, they often are eager to get back to the continuous loop of thoughts running through their heads. Number 6. You're a visual learner. Being a daydreamer means that you have constant images and played-out scenes running through your head, so it's no surprise that you connect with images and diagrams as a source of learning. A prime example of this would be that the maladaptive INFJ daydreamer would be much more successful at finding directions if someone were to draw them a map or use visual landmarks rather than if someone were to verbally tell them which streets to turn on. In fact, daydreamers tend to memorize locations, directions, and placements of items better than the average person due to their ability to vividly remember visual details. Even though they have the habit of not entirely being here on this planet per se, when the INFJ maladaptive daydreamer sets their minds to it, they're able to retain visual information to later apply to real-life scenarios, thanks to their trusted extroverted feeling and sensing functions that run in the background. Number 7. You rehearse scenarios before they happen. It's fair to say that every INFJ has a little maladaptive daydreaming tendencies, but the real question is, would every INFJ be considered this type of imagination-distracted person? And while we may not ever have the answer to that, one thing that's for sure is that INFJs don't do anything without first rehearsing it and weighing out the potential outcomes first. Whether it's vividly rehearsing asking the barista at your local coffee shop out for a date, or playing out what would happen if you were to tell your boss off and quit on the spot. Even if these daydreams never come into fruition, INFJ maladaptive daydreamers have a tendency to play out future or potential scenarios in their heads with vivid detail before they come into play in the real world. This tactic can actually reduce the social anxiety aspects of presenting to larger crowds, talking to a boss, approaching someone intimidating, going on first dates, and so on, because they have ruled out all of the possibilities and have rehearsed their reaction to all of them. Not only do they subconsciously use this tactic as a hack, but they actually rely on it for a lot of their social interactions, which can sometimes result in ingenuine reactions and noticeably rehearsed replies. Number 8. There are certain thoughts you have on repeat. So, what are these INFJ daydreamers dreaming about anyway? Well, there are a whole host of thoughts and scenarios that come with introverted intuition, but sometimes they get stuck on a couple major ideas that they have on repeat. Maybe they just can't shake that thought of asking out that barista, or maybe they wake up every day to the imagined idea of what their life would be like if they finally quit their job. Whether these thoughts bring them comfort or familiarity, these constant repeated thoughts may seem like they would be annoying, but to daydreamers, they find it more interesting and satisfying than reality. Sounds a lot like introverted intuition, being that they use these thoughts as the driving force to accomplish their desires. Sometimes, these INFJs actually end up living a life that seems like something out of our wildest dreams, because that's exactly where it came from. Well, psychos, that's all for today's video. Before you go, comment down below whether or not you think all INFJs can relate to these signs of a maladaptive daydreamer. Also, make sure to leave us a like, share with your friends, and also subscribe to our channel so that you never miss a video.